So, our story begins from a classroom. It's a fresh start for a new batch at an art institute. Students arrived 15 minutes early, filling the room with eager chatter as they waited for class to begin. A girl walks into the classroom who is also a main character of her story, by the way, glancing around at the unfamiliar faces before quietly making her way to the last row. It's her first day, and everyone here is new to her. So she keeps to herself, figuring it will take time to feel comfortable enough to connect. She settles into her seat alone, observing the others as they chat and laugh in small groups. Eventually, she pulls out her cell phone, focusing on it to avoid feeling out of the place. She is naturally reserved, by the way, and someone who doesn't open up easily, especially around strangers. Just as she settled in, a boy entered in the room. He is another important character of our story, by the way. He carried a book and pen in his hand, his confidence apparent in the way he looked around for a seat. Spotting the empty spot next to her, he made his way over and sat down. This boy is lively and friendly, exactly the kind of person who liked to strike up conversations. He checked his watch, glanced around, finally focused on the girl sitting beside him, who was still absorbed in a phone. Now, besides the two main characters in our story, the boy and the girl, there are two unlike characters that plays a special role in our story, a pen and a notebook. Though seemingly ordinary, these items have their own way of bringing the boy and the girl closer together, as you will soon discover. As soon as he sits, he looks at his watch and finds still there is time for the lecture to begin. What to do till then? He looks in front, back, and besides, where he finds that same girl sitting beside him, who is obviously busy with her cell phone. He decides to say hi to her, but before he could say anything, the instructor enters into the classroom. Not one to be easily discouraged, boy opens his notebook, wrote a quick hi, and nudged it in her direction. The girl glanced at the note but simply looked away, giving him no response. Now, boy gets confused of not getting any reply from her and looks in his book to see if he have written hi correctly or not. He then looks at her again, who is still avoiding him, and forgetting everything, he writes back again in his book. Hi, I'm Kedar. This is where our boy's name is revealed. It's Kedar. Kedar shows her the book, to which she replies with a sharp look, clearly unamused, and ignored him once more. Now, as the lecture is running, Kedar sat back, puzzled by her silence. By the end of the class, the girl left without a word, leaving Kedar scratching his head in confusion. What's the problem with this girl? That's how the day one ends. Day two. It's the same scene as the first day. Students settle in their usual spot, chatting quietly as they wait. Now, our boy Kedar enters and heads straight to his seat beside the girl, who is once again focused on her phone. Remembering her reaction yesterday, he decides to play cool this time. But before long, he opens his notebook and writes hi and shows it to the girl, to which she glances. Setting her phone aside to his delight, she takes his notebook and writes back hi. Encouraged, he writes, so you can talk, and shows it to her. He finally feels he succeeded into something except for the thing that he is in classroom for. She gives him a serious look this time, then goes back to her phone. Just then the instructor arrives and the class falls silent. Halfway through the lecture, unable to resist, the boy taps her shoulder and shows her another note. So, you're from Andheri, hmm? She is surprised, startled, wondering how he knows that, how he knows her address, and looks at him and finds that he is holding up her ID card and waving it in front of her. He's teasing her. She quickly snatches it back, puts it around her neck, and shoots him with an annoyed glare, very angry. Now, a few moments later, Kedar is about to pass her another note and he is about to write something, but this time the girl beats him to it. She opens her notebook and in bold letters writes, "Will you please stop disturbing me?" Seeing this, he finally quiets down, closing his notebook. When class ends, the girl gets up, and leaves without a word. And as usual, he lingers behind, already plotting his next move. And that's how our day 2 comes to an end. Day 3, it's pouring rain outside, and inside the classroom, the students are settled in their usual places. Among them, our girl is obviously sitting quietly absorbed in a phone. Suddenly, Kedar bursts into the class, fully drenched from the downpour. He takes his seat beside her, dripping water everywhere. With a quick shake on his head, droplet flies off his hair, sprinkling onto her and some of the other students. She frowns, shifting away to put some space between them. Seeing her reaction, the boy finally breaks his silence and says, "Don't worry, it's just water," he says, flashing a playful smile on his face, and the girl, unimpressed, ignores him and returns to her phone. Determined not to give up, the boy pulls out his notebook, keeps it on the table, and writes, "What's your name?" To which she doesn't acknowledge, staring at her phone as if he doesn't exist. Moment later, the instructor enters and the class settles into silence. Now, midway through the lecture, Kedar writes back again in his notebook and shows it to her. "Are you mute?" She finally takes her notebook out, writes back, and shows it to him. "You know, my dad is a police officer." Kedar pauses, eyes widening slightly as he looks back at the note. He quietly closes his notebook and decides to stay put and not push further, at least for now. Later in the lecture, Kedar notices her searching through her bag, frustration visible on her face, and he realizes she's lost her pen. Seeing an opportunity, he gestures with his pen in hand, asking, "Hey, listen, you need a pen." To which she replies with an ignorance as usual and still digging through her things. Here, our Kedar is unstoppable. He can't help himself and says, "Hey, listen, why don't you call your dad? He's a police officer. He can find it for you." He whispers, and his laughter just barely held in check. The girl shoots him a sharp, angry look but continuing her fruitless search. Kedar, amused by her struggle, leans in again and asks, "Hey, you know, you could just take mine. I've got spare." To which she ignores him and starts asking other students nearby. But to no avail and defeated totally after wasting so much of time, she turns back to our Kedar, tapping his chair reluctantly. "Hey, listen, you have to open, right?" She asks with an expression mix of reluctance and resignation. He looks at her dramatically and then glances around as if she could be talking to someone else. "Wait, you're talking to me?" To which she whispers with a hint of annoyance in her voice, "Yes, you said you have two pens, right?" With a dramatic and sad face again, he says, "Sorry, I just have one pen. Can't help." After hearing this, she huffs, embarrassed and annoyed, resuming her search in frustration. Finally, Kedar breaks into smile, reaches into his pocket and pulls out a brand new pen, holding it out to her. And she looks at him, her eyes narrowing, but seeing his teasing grin, she can't help but smile. She takes the pen and they both starts to laugh, breaking through the tension. Now, after a moment, something unusual happens in the story, and for the first time, she takes his notebook and writes, "I'm Bhavana." Kedar, still surprised and doesn't know what has happened, grins at her response and scribbles back immediately, saying, "Finally, the name revealed." She gives him a genuine smile and whispers, "Thanks for the pen." To which our Kedar replies, clearly pleased and very happy this time, "Anytime." This is where he feels satisfied for the first time after so many days. After a few minutes, the lecture ends and Bhavna stands up to leave. She returns the pen to Kedar with a quiet bye. Kedar's face lights up and he waves back. After she leaves, Kedar lingers, a big smile on his face as he collects his things and begins to leave. Now, as Kedar was about to leave, admin of the institute approaches him with an ID card form, which he needs to fill and submit along with the passport size photograph. He begins his search for the photo in the pocket but fails to find it anywhere with him. After which he says to Edmund, "Hey, listen, I had it with me, but I think I lost it. Is it fine if I submit it tomorrow?" To which Edmund replies, "No problem, but surely get it done tomorrow." With that, Kedar finally walks away, his mind still replaying the smile he exchanged with Bhavna. And our day 3 ends here. Day 4. As usual, everything is same today except for Bhavna's feelings. She is today eagerly waiting for Kedar. She looks expectantly at everyone who walks through the door. After waiting for a while, she eventually takes out her mobile and begins scrolling. Just then, a boy comes and sits next to her. Without glancing up, Bhavna smiles and writes in a notebook, "Hey, hi," and shows it to him. Now, to her shock, she gets a reply, "Hey, babe, what's up?" Now, seeing the reply, immediately Bhavna glances up at the boy and is startled to see it's not Kedar. Oh my god. The person she expected, it's someone entirely different. The boy is odd looking with slightly awkward grin plastered on his face as he's chewing gum noisily. His quirky appearance and the way he smirks at Bhavna makes her feel uneasy. Embarrassment floods her as she realizes her mistake. Just then, a burst of laughter echoes from behind her. She whips around and sees Kedar sitting a row back, laughing uncontrollably. It's clear he witnesses the entire episode from the moment she mistook the strange boy for him to the note she wrote in a notebook and to her mortified reaction. Now Bhavna quickly turns back to the boy sitting next to her, who is still staring at her with the same strange expression, chewing his gum obnoxiously. Deciding she had enough, she gathers her things and moves to sit beside Kedar, who is still laughing so hard that he can barely breathe now. She swats him lightly with her notebook, trying to stifle a smile of her own. Kedar, catching his breath, finally picks up his notebook, scribbles something, and shows it to Bhavna with a mischievous grin. The note reads, "Hey babes, what's up?" Bhavna rolled her eyes and hits him again, though this time she was laughing too. Now, while Kedar was laughing hard, he misses his balance on chair and a pen falls off from his pocket. Bhavna spots the pen, and as she is about to pick it up for him, she realizes it's her pen that she lost yesterday. She raised an eyebrow and held it up. "So you took my pen?" Bhavna takes her pen, leaves all his stuff as it is, gives an angle look to him, and sits quietly on her chair, giving a serious expression. Kedar gets depressed of what he did and also is embarrassed of getting caught. He says sorry to her, but she avoids him and starts treating him as stranger. Kedar takes his bag on his lap and sits quietly as he is feeling guilty of what he did and looks down. Suddenly, Bhavna shows him his passport size photo which he lost yesterday. And he feels amazed of seeing this and looks at her. Bhavna gives a wide smile to him and begins to laugh. She says, "Don't worry, I have something of yours too." To which Kedar replies, "I should be calling 911 for this. Or should I call your dad? He's a police officer, right?" Suddenly, one of the students enters the class and announces, "There is no class today as instructor is not feeling well." A wave of excitement ripples through the classroom as students cheerfully packs up their belongings and heads out. Bhavna and Kedar exchange a glance, both smiling, and leave the classroom together, chatting as they walk. There is no awkwardness, just a sense of ease that wasn't there before. And our story ends here. The name of our story is Strangers.